All right, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Tomboy Official. Oh my gosh. So, this episode is kind of talking about LGBTQ plus people in therapy, kind of that topic, as well as mostly that topic, and then kind of some other topics related to just kind of like an experience I had, not like a detailed experience, but in general, like an example of an experience I had with going on dates with a trans person and kind of bringing it up in therapy and having the therapist kind of not really be too aware of how to kind of navigate that conversation. But the whole topic was from a tangent of talking about the L word. I don't know how I got there, but I veered off from talking about how some of the L Word cast was doing collabs with YouTubers, and this just went off on this whole other tangent. So this is my attempt to kind of break it up into an episode that's a little more just dedicated to that, the topic of therapy, more therapy related of a topic. But I am realizing maybe I do want to make more recordings about therapy in general, just because it might just be a if people stumble upon it, it might just be something that could be useful. But it's, again, a lot of it can be from my own perspective. So, I mean, it's not like I'm doing like empirical research and like making any kind of model out of anything that I'm saying. It's just, we could say a case study, but, and, I appreciate anybody that I've ever used for therapy support or like peer counselors and things like that. Like, I appreciate all those types of people because they try and they sit and listen to my nonsense about whatever the heck and try to make sense of it. And I don't think I even meet that many people in the world that are that similar to myself. Not that often. And so for people to kind of not really maybe fully understand where I'm coming from, sometimes that's a pretty normal experience. So I'm not really trying to like bash them for not really like understanding some like obscure like kind of like stressor in my life that's just like out there from like, it probably almost seems like it's from another planet, in all honesty, because it's not really something that they might have to deal with. And so, I don't fault them for that, for not, I can't even say that like, oh, they weren't thinking out of the box or whatever, but I mean, I myself, working in the field, have never even come across any trainings that would be helpful towards some of the things I've probably come into to talk to a therapist about. And that like, I know that when I was doing more kind of one-on-one therapy and like even group therapy and stuff, like as the person doing the counseling, I had a good supervisor that I've talked about it before. Like, she talked a lot about like John Friedrichsen and ISTDP, and a lot of like focusing on the emotion of things, and the emotional experience that's causing distress, and that's kind of like the underlying kind of thing to work on, not so much the content of the stories and all that other kind of stuff, but like helping with the emotional aspect of things is more so the job of the therapist than like being able to really like maybe fully understand. But I mean, it kind of does help though when you have a therapist that kind of gets it. And I do, I would say that I applaud therapists who can actually honestly say that they don't maybe really know where to go with certain things. I mean, like, they could fake it and just be like just go with it and like, all right, like, here we go, and not even like mention that like they've never come across a certain scenario or whatever. But it's like, I don't think it's their fault. I think it's more like a lack of training, a lack of materials to be trained by, and I think, I mean, I didn't really mention this in the episode yet, I don't think, because I'm recording this intro after I've already rambled on about some other topics, and now I'm going back and trying to remember what I was saying and recording the intro. But when I think of it, it's like, I think it's probably hard for, certain populations to train other people. Like, sometimes it's like, okay, you might need a first-hand person to train, right? So, for example, if I was trying to study Black people in a certain place in the United States, I'd probably want, if I was trying to make a training, I'd probably want to talk to actual Black people to have them, help with seeing kind of where the holes are in the system, and identifying kind of needs and different things like that in the community. Same with like if I was working with trauma, same if I was working with, maybe people with like blindness or hard of hearing, or different types of people. So but I think with some categories of people, it's maybe in a way sometimes easier to get access to them to be able to develop trainings. I mean, I think it is a very complex, when I'm thinking of it, it's a very complex kind of it's a complex, I guess, situation to try to be like, hey, I know you're gay and you work here and you're gay. Like, can you make a training for all of our staff because you're the gay one? It's like, I mean, how does that conversation even go? Like, it's a different kind of it's not like it's a religion or like an ethnicity or like a group of people that, it's not like there's no taboo around it. I guess I could put it that way. It's like there is a certain kind of taboo. It would almost be like if you're having like a marriage and family therapy clinic and having somebody who's well versed in certain types of fetishes making a training. Like, how do you like find who's gonna do it, and how do you even open that conversation? I mean, I don't think it's legal. You can't just be like, which of you in here wants to make a training about fetishes? Like, it kind of puts people on the spot. and people might not volunteer for it, or they might, and it can get a little controversial too. And so I kind of feel the same way when it's like, you know, I felt a little like I haven't had a lot of situations at work. When I was working in like a clinic and doing counseling, I had like I was talking to some work friends about it, but you know, I remember being like the only black therapist. Like that was very clear. That whenever there was a client that requested black or African American therapists, I was like the one most of the time. But I remember one of my friends was asking, or maybe we just were, I remember having dinner with some friends and they were like asking, like, you know, if they asked you in the, I don't remember what the name of our meetings were called, but like our conference meetings about the clients or whatever, if they asked, you know, for an LGBT therapist, would you like mention like, oh, I'll work with them, you know, like, because they can't just be like, you're gay, so you know, you can be assigned to this person because that's what they're requesting. It's like a different type of category of people. And so I think that really contributes to the lack of training, because you can't really easily develop trainings, because you can't easily ask people of a certain identity, like LGBT identities, to just be like making trainings. Whereas with other categories of people, you can kind of maybe ask them to, without it being like offensive or like taken weird, or like, you know, because we had some trainings. I think we had some trainings about trans people, and the training was by a lesbian woman. So it's not like she didn't know anything. She knew a lot and she presented a lot. And then, I mean, I'm not like trying to be like mean, but like, there was like a section where people could write down questions on like a piece of paper anonymously, and like, they could like pass them, you know, so the papers would all be passed into like maybe like a jar or something, I don't know what it was, and then they would just be pulled out individually, and she would read the question and ask the question. And I can't remember exactly what the question was, but there was a question where someone next to me was like laughing, like kind of like cracking up, like not really, like they kind of caught themselves doing it and then just kind of stopped, because they realized not everybody was laughing, and maybe it was one of those situations where they thought everybody was gonna laugh along to the question, but they were like the only one, so they kind of played it off like coughing. And I was kind of like, dude, I don't want people to think it was me, because like I'm sitting right next to this person, so I didn't want somebody to think that like I was the one laughing. But most people in the room knew that I was like one of the other non-straight people in there, other than this like lesbian lady that was talking. And because I was friends with a lot of them, like the ones I actually hung out with, they all knew. Like I was never really like hiding things from people I actually hung out with and spent time with. It was more so the people that I was like only in the office having a professional relationship. I'm not going to be like telling them like who I'm dating and all that kind of stuff in the middle of work. But it was just kind of interesting. And so yeah, when I think about it, I'm like, I don't really know how people could get trained, because I feel like maybe, you know, a lot of cis straight people might not feel like they have the place, like it's their place to be able to make a training. Maybe they might feel that way, But I mean, we've gone for years in our culture with people who were not a part of the category making trainings for people. Like, how many trainings were made about Latino populations, Black populations, Asian populations? Like, there were plenty of trainings that were created by people who weren't of those specific ethnicities, and maybe they don't have firsthand experience, but sometimes secondhand experience is still, I think it's valid, as long as maybe, I mean, the thing is, it just gets tricky, because I mean, like, if somebody's gonna come up and start, like, say, for example, so it'll come up later in this episode, but I start talking about an example, and I use some fake names, and I say, James, my straight friend, and then, Mo, my trans date, my trans male date. So say if James, my cis hetero friend, starts hanging out with me and Mo, my trans male date, and we hang out all the time, and we're just like a trio, and we just run around town and take trips and vacations together, and we're just like buddies, would James, the cis straight guy, not have any authority or knowledge about trans males, or non-straight females that date trans males? I mean, I think just by hanging out a lot and secondhand, being friends and involved, James might have more and more kind of like understanding of different cultural things than maybe a person who was never friends with or connected with certain people. So if James was going to make a training, James could say, I want to make a training, but just preface everything with, like, in my secondhand experience. I mean, I don't know what the wording would be, but it's like, I feel like that's almost better than nothing, just to get the gears turning for people that might never have even a secondhand experience. At least a secondhand experience still gives, it's better than nothing. It gives more insight. And I think it's still good to have like secondhand majority culture opinions about things too. But I think it's, I know that people would maybe have a bit of an issue with that, but I'd kind of maybe almost rather see that than nothing at all. 'Cause for a lot of things, we kind of have nothing at all. Which is weird to me. And so it's just kind of interesting. It's like, can you kind of like, is that, I don't know, there's always going to be someone who's going to have a problem with something, but I wonder, if that would just at least get the ball rolling with stuff. That could be a solution. I mean, I'm not really an authority on like how to make trainings and stuff like that, but it's like, I've seen, people give PowerPoint trainings, on like, just kind of lit review research type of topics that has something to do with their own culture. And, if you're a straight person living in Hillcrest or in WeHo, I'm pretty sure, if you hang out around those neighborhoods with different people in those populations and such, you probably know a thing or two about the LGBT community. Like, I'm pretty sure you know something. Just to kind of like shine some light on different topics. But I really do notice there's a lack of training. And I don't know if I would even be like a good person to train people, because I kind of just run around and do whatever the heck I want. Like, I'm not like I mean, it's even hard to like find terminology sometimes when I'm talking to people for like even what I do in my own life. I'm just like, when people, like I can use, like, I don't even know, like even with like terminology, it's like I can say gay, I can say lesbian, I can say queer, I can say whatever. To me, it's like all interchangeable. I have a friend that once referred to me as pan, and I was like, nobody's ever said that to me before. But I mean, I'm like, if you want to get technical, yeah, that word works, but I don't really use it because for me, I think it's confusing because not everybody knows what pan means. And then I don't know. Sometimes I just want it to be clear, and I'm like, for me, gay, queer, not straight, to me, that's easier for me to say than, something else. And sometimes I don't like to say, I don't like to say lesbian, because it's like, well, if I am dating somebody who's a trans guy, that is kind of like a bit awkward to say when it's like, well, this dude is not identifying as a woman, and so for you to say you only date women, then you're dating someone who identifies as male. It's like it gets a little complicated, and some people can maybe not like that, and just stuff like that. So I mean, I'm gonna dive more into these types of topics, but this episode is gonna be a little bit all over the place, because I basically went from one topic and just started bleeding into a second topic all of a sudden, and then tried to go back and clip it out, and so it might not make any sense, but I mean, if you keep listening, you'll know by the end if it made sense or not. But it did start from me talking about the L word. And yeah. It's just kind of like, all right, like, I got this, it's like, all right, like, I'm not basing it on like YouTube or whatever, but it's kind of like, I noticed like when we even have like LGBT trainings and all this, I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to say yawn, but it's kind of like, I don't really learn anything from it, like sometimes I have, like sometimes I've learned of, what is it? Like sometimes I've learned, like some resources, mostly San Diego resources, but resources, like certain doctors that do certain stuff or whatever, like but other than that, as far as the content they talk about, or like even in the trainings we have to do for work every year, sometimes I learned some information about like the lack of legal protection and like with different types of identities in different states and stuff. But other than that, it's like, I learn more from YouTube than I learn from the trainings at work, and it's kind of sad. And just from talking to people in general, and I'm just like, guys, like the rest of the queer community, the majority of them have like moved past what the trainings even teach. And so like I've even noticed, like as an LGBT person, I've talked about this before, like, and I'll probably keep talking about it. Like, when you go into like a therapy office, or like connect with a therapist, and it's kind of like, even if you specifically want to only talk about LGBT stuff, a lot of times they'll have in their profiles that like they just put like LGBT as like a population that they know. Like they'll put like depression, anxiety, PTSD, LGBT, they'll put stuff like that. So you kind of assume they know a lot. And I can't tell you how many times I've come across, therapists or peer supporters who are kind of just like, oh yeah, like I'm not too familiar with that, or like, I'm just kind of like, but you put it in your profile, and like and it's not even like surface stuff. Like it's not even like, it's not even like some deep, like, complex thing. It's like, it can be like some minor thing where it's like, this is like basic, like 101 kind of, like queer 101 kind of thing. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. It's a little disappointing, honestly. I don't even know how I got into this topic, but it's a little like, I guess maybe it's misleading. I don't know. It would almost be like equivalent to, like, if a person had anxiety, right? And they go into a therapist that says that they work with anxiety, because that's like one of the 3 things they put on their profile. Anxiety's one of them. And the person starts talking about like, okay, like, I can't focus, I can't, I worry about everything, and, it's distressing to a point where I can't sleep, and all, like just basic stuff that someone would say about anxiety. And then if they were like, oh, like I've never really known any clients that had trouble sleeping because of anxiety, it's like, really? Like, that's like a basic thing, it's like, oh, like I've never really known any clients who like really worry a lot, because they are experiencing a lot of anxiety. And like, I don't, I need to like learn more about this, like if you went to multiple therapists when you had anxiety, and that was kind of the message you got, you'd be like, really? They can't even talk to me about my worries and insomnia? Like why? Like, what? Like, that would just be like, it's like, really? Like, so it's kind of like interesting to me that like when people put that, as therapists or whatever, and they'll put, LGBT, and then they'll be like, oh, like I'm not really familiar with that, and it's like, oh, like, it's like, what? Like, what? Like, this is like basic, but I don't know, like, I just find that interesting. I find that very interesting how that is, and I don't know, maybe I should talk more about that. And I think it's fine though for people to put on their profiles, but I just think it's a little, like, I don't know what some of the therapists think when they put that on there. Like, I don't know what they think. Like, maybe they just think, okay, like, I'm accepting or open-minded towards this group of people, or I consider myself an ally, which is great, but it's like, if you have people coming across your desk that are kind of that population, and nothing, it's like, okay, like, like, I know there is kind of like this weird, like, I know, like, when somebody says like LGBT lifestyle, that is kind of like a weird, kind of complex terminology to say LGBT lifestyle, even though, I mean, it is kind of a lifestyle for sure. I mean, like, it can totally be. Because I would say when I'm in San Diego, I have a completely LGBT lifestyle. Like, that's how my life is. But depending where I'm at when I'm in LA, when I'm like staying with my family in LA, it's kind of like a more like behind closed doors kind of thing. Like, it's not something I'm like out in the open like talking about. I mean, I got rainbow flags all over the freaking place, but it's like we don't talk about that. Like, if I go out with my friends, I'm just like going out with my friends. There's no more detail of like, who is this friend? Where did you meet? Oh, that's your queer friend that you met at a pride parade through some gay church group thing. You know, it's like there's none of that conversation. It's more like, that's my friend that lives over there, you know, or like, that's my other friend that lives over there. Like, we don't talk about like the queer aspect of it. It's just weird to me. But I would say that, you know, an LGBT lifestyle does exist, but I think the problem with it maybe is like the way people, sometimes when people talk about like in a discriminating way, like, oh, we don't want you living that lifestyle kind of thing, kind of like, oh, you're choosing to like actively live this way, and if you wanted to live a different lifestyle, you could just do that and it would be just fine. Like if I wanted to be a cowboy one day, I could just be a cowboy, be a cowgirl, like whatever. You know, if I wanted to live a off the grid lifestyle, I could just, you know, disconnect and go live out in the forest somewhere. If I wanted to live a city lifestyle, I could go into the middle of like some urban area in a major city and go live there. Like, I feel like that's kind of more like a lifestyle, but I don't know what else to call it. When you do have kind of like a queer lifestyle, I don't really know what else you would call it. So I think it's kind of like two different things. Because like, yeah, when I'm in San Diego, even having like housemates, like I mentioned before, one of my housemates opened my gay book. I got that book, Coming Out Happy by what's her name? I'm gonna have to look her name up, because she's a I can't spell. She's a dude, I can't even find her freaking album. Why can't I find her songs? Like, this is pretty bad. Like, it's an artist I listen to quite often anyways. Singer, songwriter. She has a podcast with her girlfriend. The book is called Coming Out Happy. Let's just look up the freaking book. Her name is so easy to remember, and I'm just totally blanking right now. Coming Out Happy. Jeez. Okay, I see the pictures. Like, what's the name of this? Go away. Dude, what's your name? That's all I need to know is your freaking name. I think I'm tired and I need to go to bed. Let me see. This is just a book. Jesus. Really? How many books are there? There's a book called Coming Out Straight. Sorry. Jesus Christ. Danny Max. My God. Okay. Danny Max. I think she's from San Diego, actually. I could be wrong, but I've seen some of their vlogs or little shorts that they've posted. Her and her girlfriend or wife, or I don't know their relationship status, but I've seen some of their posts, and it seems like they've been at like Mission Bay a lot. I'm pretty sure it's Mission. But yeah, Danny Max is dope. Has some pretty cool songs. There's this one like about somebody always being on tequila. That's like probably one of my favorite songs by her. And then she's got some pretty dope beats. It's like kind of this almost hip-hop beat, hip-hop style, like a hip-hop EDM kind of fusion kind of beats, but kind of like R&B vibes, kind of like a bit of a soulful singer, but yeah, like cool artist all around. But anyways, I got her book, and because I've talked about it before, because one of my housemates used to always get a lot of Amazon mail, like all the time. He get like almost every week. He get like probably 2, 3, 4 packages a week. And so I guess he just assumed it was his and opened it and then realized like that wasn't what he ordered. And in fact, it was mine and not his. And, so I was like, at first I was like kind of like weirded out for like a second, because I was like, it's a bit of an invasion, but I could see it was an honest mistake. And he doesn't want my gay mail. Like, I'm pretty sure he couldn't care less. But it was just kind of funny, because I was just like, oh, oops, but like I wasn't like hiding it necessarily. It's just I wasn't really talking to those housemates, so it's like it never came up. But I'm pretty sure they knew, because they were always talking to me about gay stuff. So I was just like, okay, like this is a little weird, and yeah, it was pretty chill, but it was kind of funny. Like I just, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't even know how I got onto that topic, but all of that, it's like multiple topics mixed together, I guess. But yeah, when it comes to even like therapy related stuff, I think maybe the best thing therapists could do is like learn what I guess, quote unquote, like gay lifestyle looks like. It's gonna vary, but it's like, and of course a lot of stuff is gonna be, okay, now we're stereotyping at this point, but it's like, to some extent, I'd almost rather be stereotyped, than like completely invisible, like that's kind of like a weird thing. Like when you talk to a therapist that doesn't know anything about your culture, when they actively say that they do, and then you're just like, wait, well, why'd you write that on your thing? And it's happened more than once, like I think there were, I don't remember how many people, but I remember there was at least once, probably more than once, I'm pretty sure more than once, that I've signed up for, talking to a therapist, and it was specifically like relationship based stuff, and they were just like, I'm not familiar with this, and I'm just like, well, what the fuck did you put that on your, like I didn't say that, but I'm just like, so are we going to try to talk about this then, like, from a straight perspective? Because it's not going to work. Like, you can't just, like, switch it around and be like, oh, like, now we're just going to say that now. And just substitute he for she, and and we'll just have a whole conversation, just substitute this, it's like there's so much stuff that's just so hard to like explain, and it can be like anything, I think I've talked about this before, but even something as I don't want to say easy, but something that seems like it would be like no big deal, dating a person that's like a trans person, for example, it doesn't sound like it should be a big deal, but it's like there's a lot that happens, it's like there's a lot that happens. Like, okay, like first of all, I mean, I don't know, like I should maybe just break these into other episodes. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. We're not talking about the L word anymore. We're off on a tangent. If you like this tangent, you're welcome. But basically, if you think about dating a trans person, for example, I'm not saying if you think about it, but like, for example, something that's common that I notice is like, it's kind of hard. It can be kind of hard to date a trans person in a very like hetero environment, because people might not be very aware of things a lot of times, and so it's like I would never discourage people from dating trans people. I'm just saying, like, for myself anyways, it can be a bit of a struggle to be like, I feel like I'm lying to people, because it's like, it can be kind of hard to be like, okay, I'm dating somebody, and then, they identify as he, so of course I'm going to say he. But if I'm talking about somebody that nobody's ever met before, for example, like, I gotta just make something up. Say I have a friend, James, that I'm talking to, and I'm talking to James, and I'm dating a trans guy named Mo, and I'm making up names, like Mo from these. I actually know two guys named James and Mo, from like way back, but they're not trans guys, but I'm thinking like Mo's, like Urban Mo's in San Diego. So if I have a friend named James, and I'm trying to explain to James, hey, I met this really cool person that I'm dating named Mo, and I'm talking about this guy, saying it's like, he owns a moped and lives in Silver Lake and whatever, and say they don't meet till like 6 months later, but if I'm talking about Mo to James, it's like I can't just be outing Mo to James unless that's fine with Mo, but sometimes when you're dating people, they don't want you telling everybody everything about them and their identity and all this kind of stuff. And so it can be a little complicated when you're like, okay, like if I say he, people usually are going to assume I mean a cis guy. Like almost automatically, people are going to assume I mean a cis guy who presents as a cis guy, who looks like a cis guy, might even be hetero. People who know me very well, will probably be like, who knows what this person's gender was when they were born? Who the heck knows, like, if this person's non-binary or what, who knows? But the more you say he and all these other kind of masculine male types of things, it just makes people assume. It would almost be like if you take the sexuality and gender out of Mo, and say now that Mo is a white South African male, and I just tell everybody that Mo is South African, Mo is African, but I never mention gender. I'm sorry, if I say African and never mention race, people are going to assume Mo is a black guy. And so when I introduce Mo to James in 6 months, James is going to have this whole picture in his head that Mo is like this black African guy. He's not going to assume that Mo is a white South African guy, right? And I mean, that's the easiest example I can use, even though it's not the same thing in any way. But I'm just saying, like, people kind of assume one thing, even though it's like, I know what they're assuming. Like, I mean, there was a time when I was dating somebody who was a woman who had kids, and, you know, but I would identify her as they, because I didn't really know what to say about her identity. So I just didn't say like a gender. And some of my friends met her, and then some other friends that didn't assumed that she was a guy. Just because I said they and I didn't say she, they assumed I was meaning he. And then, you know, I had to eventually just be like, oh, she's a mom, you know, like they're a mom, you know, like it's like mom with kids, like, oh, woman, yes, okay, you know, it's kind of like, okay, you know. But it was like, I kind of noticed that when I would be like, you know, I was talking to one of my friends who was like, you know, we went from they to he all of a sudden, and I was just thinking, like, who are they talking about? You know, and they started talking to me, asking me if this guy, you know, had a, you know, like how this guy is with his kids and stuff. And I'm like, what guy? Like, what guy with his kids? And I just was realizing, like, oh, like, when I said they, that now means he, and he is supposed to be a dad. And I'm like, no, the they is a mom, you know. And I'm just like, like, it's just like, because it's just, you know, after you talk about something for a while, like, it gets a little complicated. And that kind of thing, I mean, that can be just like basic. That's what I mean when it's like, when I say like basic, like queer 101 kind of stuff. It's like, this is just like how you generally talk to people about stuff, and how do you deal with other people assuming certain things, and then you're trying to be, like, of course, honest about it, but then also it's like you have this other person, Mo, over here that you're dating, that's like this trans person that you're dating, and, you know, if they don't want you to say that they're trans, if they want to be the one to say that themselves, and you're dating them, then, you know, what do you do? You know, what do you say? Like, you know, it's like, are your friends gonna be pissed off at you that you're dating some dude, some trans guy, and like all, you know, and like, you know, I mean, nobody that I know right now, but I've had experiences with LGBT friends. Not a lot of them, but LGBT friends that were maybe kind of prejudiced towards trans people. And, you know, so, and they might not know that, you know, hey, I was just going out with a trans person, and they're just like going in about like trans people this and blah blah blah, all that. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, you know, like, what do you want me to say, you know, like. And, you know, I mean, I get it. You, like, people can have their opinions about stuff. But it's like, it's kind of just a weird world to live in, honestly. It's just a really weird world. And then it gets kind of interesting if you're like, okay, I'm going to talk to a therapist that has like zero clue that about any of it, and they're just like, they don't even know what to say. They're just like, I don't know, I don't know what you're supposed to do, It's like, well, um, okay, it's like, it's just kind of an interesting, there's just a lot of interesting dynamics, and it's not like a bad, like bad on them, that they don't know, but it's just like, how could they know? How could they think? Like, there's plenty of stuff that I don't ever think about because I'm not a person of a certain category, that, certain things just never would cross my mind because I never have to deal with it. I'll give a perfect example. I'm lucky enough to be housed, and I, during the Rona, I started working remotely, and there were a couple clients I would see in person. And there was this one client that just was kind of all over the place all the time. And I was like a little bit trying to, keep engaged. And so we eventually had to start meeting in person. And we're downtown in San Diego. And, we're meeting. We're like sitting out front of one of the buildings that is used for one of the housing type programs. There's so many downtown. And we're sitting out front there. This client of mine was pretty cool. Ordered a whole bunch of Uber Eats. And they sit there, they start eating while we're doing this like housing application or something. I was trying to help them apply for like SROs or something. So I have my work laptop and I'm trying to fill this out. And the client's sitting there eating her meal, and she got like all this extra food, and other friends that are homeless are like coming by, like saying hi, asking who I am, all this kind of stuff. And they're really social, like everyone was like socializing. And I was just like trying to do my job, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is like a whole different thing that like, and she said something to me. She was just like, because when I was leaving, I was like, I gotta be back, I gotta leave, because I can't just like be here all day. We were hanging out for like multiple hours. Like, I was just like rapport building and just kind of like, whatever, like I have time to do this. So, we were just talking, and I'm trying to get to know them. And we started talking about the phone, and like, sometimes I'm trying to get in touch with you and all this kind of stuff, and like, what's the best way and all this, and all that kind of stuff. And so she was trying to explain to me that because of Corona, everything is closed, which I knew this, but I never put two and two together to think about how long it takes a person who does not have a house to find the place that's going to let them go in, wash up, use the bathroom, without discriminating or kicking them out or making them feel weird or making them feel bad or not letting them use the facilities or making them buy something, So she says she spent a lot of time trying to like use the bathroom and wash up and charge her phone, because there's nowhere to charge the phone because nothing is open. Like, I used to have clients that would go in places, not necessarily like the DMV, but like libraries, different types of clinics, and they would just, charge their phone while they were waiting places, and at least they would get it charged. But she was saying like, well, I don't have anywhere to charge my phone. And so I miss your calls and I miss our appointments. And then, sometimes when I am available, I'm walking around, going from building to building, trying to find somebody who's going to let me in to use the bathroom so I can wash up for the day and like, use the restroom when I need to and stuff. And I was just thinking, because it's like you can't keep going to the same place because they're gonna get mad about it. And so she's like, some places are far, so she has to go to different. Oop, we got cut off. But yeah, she was saying some places are far, because she knows different places she can go, and but she can't go to the same places all the time, and then she has to keep her belongings in a certain place because she knows like Caltrans and police aren't gonna come and like shoo her away from certain areas. And so the places where she's allowed to stay versus the places where she can use the bathroom and places to charge a phone and all that kind of stuff, they're so far away that it takes hours out of her day to try to like do all this stuff. And I'm just like, in my own stupid head, just like, dude, why isn't she keeping appointments? But this is just stuff I could even see with my own bare naked eyes. Like, I saw it firsthand that everything was closed. Like, I would have to drive between San Diego and LA on occasion, and even I knew that the normal stops that I would normally go to, the normal McDonald's, the normal Shell station, or the 76 station, or the Jack in the Box, there were some certain places, even Denny's, where I would go and just drop in a bathroom real quick, at my halfway point, just take a little breather. Sometimes when I was like really tired, I would just do my halfway mark and just, maybe text my mom and be like, yeah, I'm halfway there, give my car 5 minutes to chill, like, not that it makes that much of a difference, but 5 minutes or whatever. But it's like, yeah, like, I would just do that, and even I knew it was a problem. And so in my head, I never put two and two together because that wasn't my life experience. So it's like, I know that when you're not actively living, a certain life, it's not very easy to fully see the different angles of things. So I do notice that it's not easy to see. So I can't fully just be like, okay, like, they need to know. But at the same time, it's like we learn a lot of details about stuff. And I just think, when people are working with a certain population of people, it kind of helps to learn a lot, about what are some major concerns and trends and problems that come up, in certain circumstances even. I mean, like, we never really had a Rona in our lifetime where we could compare of like what's gonna happen to the people on the streets, like, all my life working with homeless people, that has never been a thing. People could always come into our clinic and charge their stuff and use our restrooms, so when they were with us, it was never like an issue. And so, yeah, this is just like a completely different thing. And then so I would think too, it makes sense to me that someone who never was dating trans people would never know the different things that might come up with just like even the language of talking about it, like not like talking crap about it, but like, people ask questions, and like, I have plenty of friends that are always just like, yeah, are you dating anybody? It's like, yeah, we talk about that kind of stuff all the time. Like, it's not like abnormal. Like, in my church upbringing, that was completely not normal, but in the real world, it is pretty normal for people to just talk about that. And so it's kind of like I've had to get more comfortable talking about it, but at the same time, it gets a little weird when it's like, I don't want people assuming, that I'm like saying certain things, and like even one of my friends, I don't remember what I mentioned. It was like, I want to say the other day, it was like 3 months ago now, but like, one of my friends, we're at this like lesbian bar, we're catching up, and I made a comment about like my nephew or something like that. I mentioned like I don't remember why I was mentioning this, but I said something about, my nephew. Um, let's just say, for example, they were saying, like, who do you usually have over for the holidays? And I would say, like, usually it's like me, my siblings, my parents, and my one of my nephews. Um, and then my friend was like, I didn't know that you had any nephews, or like, and I was like, wait, like, I had to like backtrack, and I had to be like, what I mean is that, there's a friend, a close family friend that I grew up with that my parents wanted to adopt. And they always kind of kept an eye out for her. And so we started calling her son, when she had a son, we started calling him our nephew. And when he started talking, he would call us aunt or uncle. He would call my parents grandma and grandpa. And so it was just like a language thing, but it wasn't like blood relative. Because everyone who knows me, well, not everyone who knows me, I don't know if it's very obvious that my siblings don't have kids, but it's like, I've never mentioned my siblings having kids. They don't have kids. But this person, who is an adult person, she has a kid that I call my nephew. And so one of my friends was like, wait, you have a nephew, kind of thing. And so it was kind of like that, where I was like, it's kind of stuff like that, where it's just kind of like, I can explain something easily like that, but I think, I don't want to be telling people something that they're like assuming for years about something, and then they just realize something when they meet somebody, and then they're like, wait, because it's like, sometimes it's just not my place. I just can't fully say the whole thing that's going on. I've gone out with guys that were not trans guys. They were cis guys, but they were bi, and because there was nothing about them that might appear to be any kind of queer type of thing, very just like straight passing, people would just assume that we were a straight couple. I don't know how they would assume that, but they would just assume that. And so when we weren't hanging out in gay spaces, people would just assume, oh, you guys are just like straight people, and so sometimes people will say a lot of interesting things around you when they think you're just a straight couple. And so it's kind of like a little awkward sometimes, like you can get people being homophobic towards you when they think you're a straight couple, and they're just like bashing gay people, like talking about gay people, saying all this like crap, and you're just like, little do they know their bestie is this bi guy and who's dating a queer woman, and like, and they're just like going in on the situation and stuff like that, like not even about that dating situation, but just talking about some random other kind of prejudice that just happens to be within the categories of those two people sitting right in front of them. And so it's kind of like, I've even had people do that to me, like as a black person, people who were kind of like a little prejudiced towards Africans, and like saying weird stuff about African people, and I'm just like, dude, like, so it's kind of like, a lot of times people might assume certain things, and I don't hate on people for it, because I do too, like, I'm not like fully clear on things sometimes. One thing that I've mentioned is, one thing that's interesting about my job is that we don't know a lot about a person's race. They don't know about my race, but I also don't know their race. And so they assume I'm white. That's very common, that people assume I'm a white person, at work anyways. And then I don't know what the race is of most of my clients. I assume sometimes, but sometimes I don't know. And the ones I've met, sometimes I'm like, I really don't know what race you are. All kinds of things. So, I'm kind of like, I try not to be like too hard on people about stuff. It's just like, we're all so busy, really, that it's like it takes a lot of time to sit and just try to like expand on things from different angles, especially without like experiencing it. And I think it really just helps to hang out with different types of people. I mean, that's the best way to learn, is when people talk about their experiences and you're like, oh shit, like it's kind of like, oh shit, like like I didn't even know, like, or some people talking about stuff that like I've never experienced in my life, that I'm just like, whoa, that's like really weird. I don't remember who I was talking to. I had a friend who was telling me that like there are some males that think that like giving an opinion is like a soft kind of quality, and it is like a really like emasculating or something. And I remember hearing recently I was listening to like Joe Rogan and Bill Burr. Like I think he has like a couple, like 2 podcast episodes with him, and just how they were kind of talking about like these kind of like masculine kind of explanations of stuff, about like how they feel about certain things, and like stuff that's kind of like appropriate versus not. Like, what did Joe Rogan say? I think he mentioned something like, if he feels like he like I think they were talking about shows as comedians, like shows that they kind of flopped, like they didn't do so well, and just kind of like didn't really captivate the audiences, for something. And then or felt like something went wrong. There was I don't know if that was the exact topic or something along those lines that went wrong, where they were just kind of like down about it. And then like one of them made a comment like yeah, it sucks when your girl sees you like right after a situation like that. And I'm just thinking like, what? Like in my head I'm just like, that doesn't, like, it kind of makes sense, but I'm kind of like, in the lesbian world, I don't know how much that makes sense. Like, I don't know, like, it's not super relatable. Like, maybe to some extent it is, but to another extent it's kind of not. But that was just something where, like, just like when I was hearing those 2 guys talk and like about different stuff, and I was just kind of like, how do they like think this way, like it was kind of like these kind of ideas that I know it's because they're men, that this is why they kind of have to, or feel like they have to kind of act certain ways or react certain ways or whatever. I wish I had better examples, but like it's just kind of interesting to me. I'm just like, like that's not really something that is a concern in my life. I don't have to like think about it, like at the end of the day, most people know that I'm a woman. I mean, yeah, I get misgendered like sometimes, I guess, but I think most people kind of know what's up. I don't think I've ever had anyone really think I was a guy like for a long time. I don't think. Like, I think most people kind of know what's up. Yeah, I don't think I've had anyone who was just like, 2 months later, like, oh shoot, I didn't know. Like, I don't think I've had anybody like that. Like, I think it usually just takes a couple seconds and people kind of figure it out if they are a little like not really aware. But yeah, I don't really know. Like, I don't know. It's all interesting stuff. Yeah, it can all be a good time. But I'll probably break this all up into maybe some different topics, because I kind of went and ran with all this in a whole different way. Like I wasn't really focusing on what I was trying to say at all, but a nice ramble. So I'll see. I might take time to break this up because it's like 3 topics. But that sounds like so much effort. This sounds like so much work that I don't want to do. And last time when I tried to do it, I accidentally deleted the segments and like, oh my God. Like, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what I do. But with that, thanks for listening.